Locked on Jazz for the 7th of October. Preseason game number 2 is in the books. The Utah Jazz and the Dallas Mavericks. Jarod Butler wowed the fan base. Trent Forrest did a lot of nice things. So did some other players, including, how does Malik Fitts? Oh, I did do it. And I'll share some personal thoughts of the first road trip back. It's all coming up on a live edition of Locked on Jazz. Pow. Pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day and every day, as we are here for you live and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked on Jazz. All right, great to be with you. Super fun road trip. I'm going to close the show today with some interesting thoughts. I actually have some audio from Donovan Mitchell that I wanted to share. But it actually doesn't work great to do this in YouTube. I think I could. I haven't totally figured out how to do that in YouTube. This is a new step for us. But I'll try to get to that. I want to share some personal thoughts. But the thing that I think most Jazz fans are fired up about is the play of Jarod Butler last night. And rightfully so. He showed a prowess and control on the offensive side of the game that for a 2-year college player rookie was pretty impressive. He played 30 minutes. He took 18 shots. He scored 22 points. He had 4 assists. He was 3 of 7 from 3. 2 of those were off the bounce threes, and he was 9 of 18 overall. Let me walk through what was most impressive to me about this performance by Butler last night. The first was, so in the first preseason game of the year, he had a really good second half of the game against college talent. And we talked about it. I kind of ran through, if you looked at like who he was playing against. Tonight, the 18 shots is an awful lot, but that's what the game yielded without Donovan, without Mike Conley, without Joe Ingles playing, with Jordan Clarkson just getting 17 minutes in, Royce O'Neal just getting their 17 minutes in. The game yielded for him to have that much offensive of prowess. Now, I'm not sure that I want him to always be doing that, but I think that, that was fine last night. We certainly don't need him, that type of shot volume. But if you look at his first quarter, he goes 2 for 3. That was against pretty close to the regular rotation of other than maybe Dorian Finney-Smith should have been out there. Obviously, Moses Brown, I don't think will play a lot. Dwight Powell would have played. But otherwise, that's pretty close to their guys. And he makes some plays against some of the better players. There's a play where he goes, straight up against Reggie Bullock and is, and frees himself on a crossover dribble off Reggie Bullock. Reggie Bullock's a pretty good player. Like Reggie, Jalen Brunson was guarding Jarod Butler at some of those plays and some of those moments. That's a big time NBA bona fide player. So unlike the San Antonio game, in which most of his success came against Josh Primo or one of those kind of guys, in this performance, he made plays while being guarded by what I would classify as NBA players. Not a very good NBA defensive team last year, 22nd in the league, but I'm not sure that actually matters. So the next piece of that puzzle was how he did it. And what he was able to do with the basketball in his hands was pretty impressive. So there's a play in which he's able to, he's driving the lane and he bobblehead dolls with his head basically and works his way into the lane and is able to free himself with like a bobblehead doll fake pass, then get there and then throw the pass a minute or two later, where when he bobbleheads, everyone thinks he's throwing the lob up. I think it was to Udoka, And what actually happens is he doesn't throw it, everyone reacts, and then he waits till that they're over the reaction and he makes the pass. That's pretty special. Like then he showed a hesitation game where he's not an electrifying speed or athlete, but he showed some hesitation and change of pace. That's pretty innate. That's pretty special. Guys don't usually have that right away. And the third one I saw out of Butler I thought was interesting was this kind of shoulder dive in one direction while the ball's in the other, and he's able to stay on balance while doing it, where he's driving, dives the shoulder into the left usually, and able to free himself still. So you're seeing these little crafty moves. Does a scouting report change that? Does a preparation? Does MB? There's a difference between preseason, regular season, and postseason. And I think that we could probably actually, I don't know if we want to temper it. I'll say this. I just never expected anything out of him this year. When I watched his college tape, I thought he looked fine. I think the NBA is unbelievable. And I thought that, the amount of players that really can impact the game in their first year in the league are very few and far between. What we got from Donovan is an unbelievable performance. And we just aren't going to see that very often. You don't see it very often. When you look at the good teams last year, you didn't see rookies. Terrence Mann was like the only second-year player that made any type of impact. And so that's where I was on Butler. After last night, I'm a little bit more intrigued about the fact that a tired voice for the first time in a long time. I'm a little more intrigued that he might be able to have an impact. And as we've said, if he does have an impact, what he'll be able to do is have, like right now, the assumption is that Eric Paschall will take Rudy Gay's minutes in the preseason, in the regular season. Eric Paschall's preseason right now has been a little iffy. He has not shot it well. He's working very, very hard on a shot that's different than the one you see in games. So the minute he gets in a game, he reverts back to that very high jump shot. It's not one that he can make with any consistency like that. Or he might be able to, but most people have not been able to. And so, I'm not sure whether or not Paschall gets those minutes, because if suddenly Jarod Butler can play, well, then maybe you're sliding Joe Ingles into those backup 4 minutes behind Bojan Bogdanovic, Royce O'Neal, the way George Niang used to play, and letting Joe play those if Butler's having a better impact than Eric Paschall could. You're small, obviously, that's a huge size differential. But that's one of the areas where he has an impact and actually then becomes a rotation player every day. And then when Mike Conley's out, then Paschall maybe slides in and Joe slides back. That way, it has a trickle-down effect that does do some nice things for our roster if Jarod's able to play 10 or 15 minutes. Here's the tricky one. You are going to have a really good defensive big behind him if he's on the floor right now. Defensive, we're all wowed by his offense. And I thought that was wow-worthy. Off-the-bounce threes are hard to come by and are an unbelievable skill in this league. He got 2 of them. Hesitation, change of pace game is probably more important when you get in the NBA than pure speed. He showed that. Change of direction, wiggle. Wiggle's really important. Like when you talk about Donovan, that's what makes Donovan. I'm not saying that Jarod Butler's in any way Donovan. When you talk about Donovan, you're talking about a wiggle. That's what separated Donovan when he got in the league, was that incredible wiggle. You just don't have that very often with players, like Mia Oni and Royce O'Neal and Elijah Hughes. Like I haven't seen any wiggle. It's like straight line. Fine. That's great. If you're straight line, athletic enough. And I thought Elijah Hughes was really good again last night. But you don't have one. But Jarod Butler is going to have a big defense, like a Rudy Gobert, basically behind him. The trick is that we match Mike Conley with Jarod Butler. We match Mike Conley with Rudy Gobert in those minutes. So if Jarod Butler's playing other minutes, he's not playing with a big time defensive big unless Whiteside can come together and play that. The other skill that Butler has that does allow him to maybe play a little bit more is he can really play off the ball. I thought Trent Forrest was super last night, and I don't want to forget about Trent Forrest in this conversation because I think he was super, but he just doesn't shoot it very well. So if he's on the floor with Donovan or with Joe Ingles doing the primary ball handling and you space Forrest off to the side, that's tough. Forrest really has to play like he did in Summer League where he has the ball in his hands the whole time. But let's not forget Trent Forrest's defense last night. That was a equally impressive performance by Trent Forrest last night. In the first quarter, he had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block shot just in the first quarter alone. He finished the night with 8 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. 3 of 11 and 1 of 4 from 3 certainly is not, the shooting aspect is just real on Forrest, that he's got to improve that to some extent. It's just not something he's done well. But boy, is he a good defensive player. It's really interesting when you look at Butler and Forrest and the contrast between the two of them. We'll touch on that here in a second. Then I want to talk about Malik Fitts as well. I want to take your questions in the chat. We've got a pretty decent live audience today, so I appreciate you all jumping in and saying hi today and making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's show is brought to you by my friend Steve Carter. Oh, not Steve Carter, but by Intercap Lending and our good friend Steve Carter. He's here to help you. Intercap Lending has given us the ability to have a corporate account. Intercap Lending is a growing lending company in Utah that's been around for 40 years, but Josh Romney brought it back to Utah, and since then they've just exploded. It was originally just 2 branches. Now they're stretching the entire state and in the bordering states as well. Why? Because they have a fabulous model that gets loans done, and that's what lenders want. They want to get loans done. So this company that came to Utah in 2016 has now continued to grow, headquartered in Utah, and just grow and grow and grow. And our personal loan officer, Steve Carter, is just marvelous. The stories, the reviews, the comments. I got an email just the other day from someone. Let me see if I can find this. That literally was like, I use Steve Carter, and that was incredible. And it's so great to get those back from you all the time. And I'm so excited whenever we can connect people. And have Mike Curtis emailed me and said, I just want to thank you for your great network of sponsors. We just finished our refi with Steve Carter. It was so incredibly easy. Hearing how he went above and beyond to get yours done with everything on the plate stuck me. So when it was time for ours, there was no question I was used to Steve. And as advertised, he didn't let me drop any balls, although I was busy and may have dropped many he caught. And the engine that kept the process moving. Thank you. So really cool to hear that those are, and that's consistently what everyone's had. Steve Carter is our own personal loan officer. You can call him at 385-800-8528. That's 385-800-8528. Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465. Or you're welcome to email me first at dlock09@gmail.com, and I'll just set you up with Steve Carter and get the personal interaction there. Steve Carter and Intercap Lending. Today's show is also brought to you by Sweat Block. I think I might have to reapply. It's been 5 days. That's right. The dry shirt guarantee. It works up to 7 days per use. Doctor created and doctor recommended. Sweat Block is the #1 antiperspirant in the Amazon antiperspirant category, manufactured in the U.S. It is pretty amazing. You take your shower, you get up, you use it, and you go to bed, and the next morning you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. It might be public speaking. It might be excessive sweating. It might be a first date. It might be a big business meeting. Whatever it might be, you do not want to have to deal with pitting out and having excessive sweating in that moment. So that's why you can use Sweat Block antiperspirant wipes, or you can use Sweat Block antiperspirant. It's all available at sweatblock.com, with the promo code Locked On gets you 20% off. That's Sweat Block at 20% off. With promo code Locked On. So when we talk about, first thing, let's remember, your team is awesome if you're worrying about your 10th guy. We're really worrying about our 8th, 9th rotation spot because Rudy Gay is out for a while, but right, we know our starting 5, and then Jordan and Joe are 6 and 7, and then Rudy Gay or Hassan Whiteside and Rudy Gay are 8 and 9. And so we have a little, Hassan Whiteside we need to see if he can play. He's had a up and down career, and the book on him has always been kind of, pleasant, nice, great guy who doesn't always, play with a lot of zest. And I didn't think he played a lot of zest in his first preseason game. So he's also an 8-year veteran. I'm not going to really worry about not playing with zest in a preseason game, but let's see if he can engage. And as I've said the whole time, he's the one who makes us way better if he does. And then you got Rudy Gay, and he's out for a little while. So we have those little spots and how they're going to be filled and what they're going to do. And the natural one is Eric Paschall gets those minutes, and we'll see whether that works. The other one is if somebody like Jarod Butler or Trent Forrest forces their way onto the floor, and then we have this trickle down. Here's what's interesting. If you look at Jarod Butler, what we saw out of him last night, which was terrific, was the ability to get wherever he needs to go with the basketball with craft, ability to score, kind of a little bit of scoring prowess, natural scorer. I'm not sure he's a natural passer. I don't think his natural instinct is to pass. I don't think he has a natural point guard play. And he's not, like, defensively leaves a little to be desired. Trent Forrest gets wherever he can with the basketball with power and strength and using his hips and his size and his power rather than his craftiness. Can hit the floater, natural passer to me a little bit more. Really good defensive player and really active defensively in executing. So it's a really interesting mix because they're not similar at all. They're both very effective. They both impact different ways. You would play them both for different purposes, but they're not similar at all. And they really are battling for minutes. It's an interesting mix to watch that take place right now between the two of them. So, but I thought that they, I thought Trent Forrest was really good. I think the things that we're wowed by, the dribble this, the head bob, the off the bounce three, and they're really important. But I think coaches are watching some things, and I bet you if we're sitting in the coaches' room right now, they're equally as impressed by the performance of Trent Forrest as they were Jarod Butler. The other player I do want to mention, I like what I've seen out of Elijah Hughes a little bit. He's not a natural shooter at all. He's the 39th pick of a draft. He really is Jarod Butler in his rookie year. It's almost like we had the 39th and 40th pick of this draft. I guess Hughes has got a little bit more exposure by being around last year, but such limited time and in such a weird COVID year with lack of practice. The natural rookie comes in that circumstances and he gets time by playing. The draft workouts are super important because you get trained. Then you go to summer league and then you go to training camp. Well, last year they didn't get draft workouts. They didn't get summer league. They really didn't get training camp because of all the COVID protocols. Then during the season, you're going to play some 4-on-4, 5-on, but you're going to go to the G League. Well, they didn't really get the G League. Elijah Hughes played 5 games in the G League, and he played, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 with like some G League players and like some of our coaches. And that's like what he spent most of the year doing. Some of our coaches are pretty good, but that's what he really spent much of the year doing. Then he this year got a summer league. Then he's getting a little bit of a training camp, and now he's getting some time, and then he'll hopefully get a real G League. I think Elijah Hughes could be a really different player here by February or March. And just with that experience, and I'm watching him play differently than I saw. 3 assists last night's a lot in 19 minutes for Elijah Hughes. That's not who he was at Syracuse. He was a pure isolation player. 3 of 9 from 3. I think he's, 6 of 15 from 3, 6 of 14 from 3 so far in preseason. He's not a natural shooter. I don't think, that flick of the wrist shot he has is not going to be one that ever is a, going to be a 40% 3-point shooter or something awesome like that. I wouldn't get super excited like that, but I think he actually is looking like an NBA player. The interesting thing is he's 6'5", 215. I feel like he plays much bigger. I'm generally impressed with kind of his size when he's on the floor in the way he plays. By the way, his career 3-point shooting in college was 34%. I think that's, that flick of the wrist, that's probably about the number for him. So he, I thought he played some interesting. The other one that was really interesting, and boy, this is probably 2-way contract. Remember, Justin James is a 2-way contract, and the Jazz released him, so they have an open 2-way contract right now. Malik Fitts was interesting last night. You might remember him if you're a BYU fan from his time at St. Mary's. I have to admit, he's interesting to me because he's 6'8", 230, and I'm so traumatized by 6'8", 220 and all the LA Clippers at 6'8", 220 running at us last year that I think part of me just wants anyone who's 6'8", 220. Like, I want to turn Elijah Hughes into 6'8", 220 when I talk about him. That incredible run of size guys that the Clippers ran at us last year was certainly overwhelming and beat us. And that was obviously the difficulty of it. So when I look at, Fitts at St. Mary's, he scored in 1920. He's another one of these, right? So he's out in the 1920 season. He comes out kind of early in the sense that he had one of these years in which he had taken a year off. He went to South Florida for a year, and then he takes a year off from South Florida and then goes back to St. Mary's for 2 years. So he's in his natural year to come out. It's the 20 year. He doesn't get drafted, and now he's stuck undrafted in this kind of like COVID basketball hell. And and that's to me what makes this guy really, really interesting is what might happen with him. He played 3 games for the LA Clippers last year. He's their property at this point. He was a part of their G League team, but you don't really, again, G League last year was really, really limited in what anyone gets out of this. So here we have a guy who signed an Exhibit 10 in November with the Clippers. He then got waived by the Clippers in December, which is so then he could go play G League. And then he ends up signing a 10-day contract with the Clippers. If we let him go, he goes back to their property. But if we give him a 10-day 2-way contract, then suddenly he's our property. And we can have him on our roster. I don't know if he's that good. He's born in 1997, so he's not like a young gun, but he's 6'8", 230. He did knock down 2 shots last night, which is pretty good. He was a 39% three-point shooter in college. At St. Mary's, he was 41 and 41. Like, I'm a little blown away on how there's a 6'8", 230-pound kid floating around that shoots 41% from 3 in 2 years at St. Mary's. I mean, the answer is he was old. He's not going to develop a great deal more. But I walked by him yesterday and was like, oh my God. Like, he's massive. His legs are massive. In practice the other day, he went up and did and you could like roundhouse dunk that wowed the place. Just kind of, they're all goofing around, not like in the middle of a game. And it was impressive. And then when he walked by me and I saw his legs, I was like, oh, well, that's where that power comes from. That was awesome. So I don't know a lot about him. I'm not going to pretend, that draft was funky, but here's another one I think really could be lost in the COVID system and suddenly be an opportunity for us on a 2-way contract. I hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him in the next 2 games to be able to see whether or not that's true. But I was generally wowed by physical presence, and then he played really well last night. Now you got to be a little careful. He knocked down 4 out of 5 from 3, so he seems great. He also had 3 assists though, and it's not like you're going to expect him to go shoot 80% from 3, but he also can now miss 5 in a row and shoot 40% from 3, which, the other wild card about him is he was a high school teammate of Donovan Mitchell at Brewster. No one we're just going to who knew? But we could end up with 2 high school teammates of Donovan or 2 childhood teammates or friends of Donovan Mitchell battling each other for playing time. And Eric Paschal and Malik Fitts at some point here. I believe the way the G League works this year is you get 80 games between the 2 of them. Trent Forrest is one of them. He's going to use an awful lot. And Malik Fitts would be the other. So it could be tight in the sense that we have a lot of different players there. We also could make a move at the trade deadline where we move a roster spot. And so one of those guys suddenly jumps up and then you don't have to worry about the last date. So you can work a system to have them on the roster the whole way. I want to share, I'm in a very deep contemplative mood today. That road trip was very emotional. I feel like we're a family and we share a lot. I'm going to do that and take your questions when we come back here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. What crazy. They are just bringing out awesome products all the time. And Churro Puffs are back, and the answer today, 100% real chocolate, 100% delicious, plus cherry lime, plus mint marshmallow. There are just a bunch of fun things going on at Built right now. Peanut butter brownie and coconut almond are still around. Coconut and mint brownie are still there for you as well. Salted caramel, raspberry double chocolate, and cookies and cream plus cherry barcia are all there for you at built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar with only 130 calories, 2.5 fat grams, 4 net carbs, and 4 sugars with just 17 grams of protein. It's Built Bar, and it's pretty awesome. Go check it out. Today's show is also brought to you by betonline.ag. Are you getting in on the ball game tonight between the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams? My wife and daughter, who go on a mommy-daughter NFL trip every year, have left to fly out to Seattle to go to that game. Rams are a 2.5-point favorite. Bunch of games also around. You can get on the early bets for the NBA. After watching Luka last night, I might have to bet Luka for MVP. Holy smokes, was he amazing. He is just incredible. to watch. That was so awe-inspiring. They're going to be great just because of Luka, and he is the favorite to win the MVP at betonline.ag at plus 450. Steph Curry at plus 700. Giannis at plus 750, and Durant at plus 800. Luka plays just was such fun. It's great to watch. All right, that is all at betonline.ag. Promo code LOCKEDON gets you a 50% welcome bonus. All right, quick questions, and I'll share some personal thoughts. Any possibility of other trades for the Jazz? No, I don't think so. I mean, I think at some point we got to clear some salary space, some salary, frankly. I still think we're really vastly over the luxury tax at a pretty high level. Now, is that something minor and small, like one or two small contracts rather than a big contract? Preferably, yes, depending where we're going with the season. But I just can't believe we're going to live this far over the luxury tax. So I think that's still an issue. It's amazing. We're going to be over it. There's no way. It's amazing what Ryan Smith and Ashley Smith have done in their commitment. But there's also just a reality of just how far and how much, what kind of commitment. Like, it's a lot. Is there going to be a consistent theme this season where the Jazz prioritize health and rest over regular season wins? I mean, you're going to prioritize health and rest. You're going to prioritize health over everything at all times because it's actually all that matters. So yes, in that sense, will it be over wins? Probably not. And will they rest just for the sake of resting? No, there'll be some logic to it. But I do think the number one seed mattered last year. You beat Memphis pretty easily. You beat Memphis 10 out of 10. I don't think there's another series you could have had last year where you would have thought you would have won 10 out of 10 times. C Breezy, I see your random question. I just am not prepared for it, so I'm not able to. Steven, do you think that spacing in the NBA helps Jarod? Maybe. He certainly has a lot of room in the middle of the paint to do those little bobs and those little moves of that nature. It's a really good point. And I think it helps Trent Forrest too, frankly. I think it helps all players if they have ball control. And so he is able to get in there. Steven's next point, actually, I'll just give him credit because I didn't see he said this. Seems like his tight dribble ability hit the floater and a little extra space helped him a lot. Yep, I think those are observations. How would I order Forrest, Butler, Hughes for most likely rotation minutes? I think they're all very different needs. Depends what the coaching staff gives on a given night and who we're playing. I think the nice thing is you could use them all in three different ways of what you need. If you really need some scoring, I'm probably going Hughes. Butler, if they don't have a great offense, if I can play him with Rudy a little bit or and there's not an offensive prowess of the player he's going up against. Forrest, if I need defense and control of the game, depending on who my point guards are that night. So I think they all can be used in a different fashion. That's interesting. Would really like to see a little more Whiteside before the regular season, says Ray. Is that Ray? I actually interact with Ray every now and then. She's a big loyal. Now I just realized I don't know how to pronounce her name. I just know it's R-A-E. Like it's just a face on Twitter. I would too. I didn't love opening night out of him, but 8-year veteran, I'm not going to worry about preseason minutes. Like when, the message is clear, we're not playing all our guys. So I think that's pretty, I think that's pretty clear that that's not the biggest thing. Do I think that Don could win a scoring title this year? Yeah. I don't know if it'd be good for us, but he could. I had a great conversation with Donovan. I'll play it tomorrow in tomorrow's show. I'm going to figure out a way to use that audio about just kind of his shooting and prowess and how he has developed his touch over the years. I wanted to share with you guys, that road trip was just amazing. It was amazing on so many levels. One, for those of you that are young out there, there's a phrase that the CEO of MIT had when he gave a commencement address to, the CEO of Dropbox gave a commencement address to MIT, and he told them to find their tennis ball. And what he meant by that was that if you take a tennis ball and throw a dog a tennis ball, they will run through a bog and a mog and a fog and whatever it might be. Get that tennis ball, come back, muddy, gross, dirty, drop it in front of you, pant again, and throw it again. And the love and excitement that dog has about going after that tennis ball. Find your tennis ball. I have found my tennis ball in life. I do a lot of other things. I built Locked On. I do other stuff. I have found my tennis ball. My tennis ball is calling games. The energy and excitement that I had before that first game in San Antonio was amazing. It just was coming through me in an unbelievable experience for me to feel that again. And it just was a normalcy. Last year, there wasn't. I didn't have that last year. I apologize. I tried the best I could at home games. I certainly had it to some. And last year was just weird. But I felt that tennis ball again. There's nothing that I love more in life than calling a game. Calling a game. It was just awesome. Night 2, there's nothing I love more than the craft of calling the game. For night 1, I just called it. Last night I worked. Last night I first opened the game in kind of an NFL style. Then I moved to a conversational style. Then I went to a very descriptive style to kind of feel where I could be and what I could do and different things and different styles. And I just love the craft. So find a tennis ball. Find your tennis ball. That's my first thing. If I could just relay to you, I just at 51 years old am so blessed and realized I have my tennis ball. And I think to get through the pandemic, we all survived things and we altered and we adapted and we've taken off our edge and we've learned how to survive, because crying in the corner is just not a great answer, though that's how a lot of us dealt with it too. And we had to. And I did plenty of it. And I had the worst attitude I've ever had in my entire life during the pandemic, with negativity that I've just never, ever had up toward things. So find your, the part 2 of it is, as we try to get back to these things and gain life in some capacity, I haven't I don't think I've ever taken for granted how much I love that job and how much I love being with the team and how much I love flying on the plane and the experiences and the interaction with the players. I don't have any idea, after being on the road for 5 days, how we did that job last year. I actually apologize. I'm embarrassed because I got a note from Mike Conley I've used. I talked to Bojan Bogdanovic and used it yesterday on the show. I talked to Rudy for a little while. I had the conversation with Don. I went to dinner with Alex Jensen and Erdman, one of our new coaches. I had a dinner with Quinn. Like, I had these interactions and these moments, and I feel the team and I know what's going on. And I just have no idea how we possibly did that last year. So my first reaction to this road trip was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I love it more than anything in the world. This is exactly what I love. And this is what I love to do, and to cover and report and to call a game and to perform and all those things at just the highest level, with the most pressure and the most tension and having to be great because it's an NBA game. And I just love it more than anything on the planet. And then I have no idea how we did it last year. I actually am embarrassed about what we did last year. We had no choice, but I'm embarrassed that product went out, having now had just these little interactions to see these things and know these things and do that. So I think the thing I would add to that on all of it is that as we enter back toward those things in our lives that are tennis balls, the beauty of this pandemic, and there aren't a lot of beauties to this pandemic, but for me, what I feel today, and maybe I'm not tired yet, is I would have been excited for this season at 51 years old. I'm going to call my 1,000th game of the Jazz this year. It's incredible. I've called over 1,000 NBA games. It's like, it blows my mind. I would have been excited. I always am. I love it. I would have loved it. I wouldn't have taken it from, but there's an extra love of what I'm going to experience and how I'm going to call games this year and what I'm going to do. And I hope that we can take that in everything we do moving forward. The pandemic stripped us of that for whether it was 8 months, 12 months, or 18 months, depending on your life and what you do. And now as we enter back into those moments in time, I hope that you can cherish and love and enjoy those moments just a little more. Enjoy that trip somewhere a little more. Enjoy that time doing something a little more. Enjoy that rock concert a little bit more. Enjoy that job a little bit more. Because I know I feel it. That road trip was amazing. It's incredible. I'm so energized. I loved being back out there. I loved being in the arenas. I loved calling games the way you're supposed to call games. It was so awesome. So I hope you can find that as well. Have a great one. Locked on Jazz.